It is 10 a.m. on the East Coast. Dan, Nathan, and I are extraordinarily excited to bring you the following. By the way, Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Guy Downey.
Transforming the financial landscape, AI's role in revolutionizing technology and workflows. We're joined by Kate Stepp. She's the CTO at FactSet. And watch this, Dan, Dmitry Shevelenko, the Chief Business Officer at Perplexity. I did. And by the way, for you folks playing our home game, of course, Dmitry is coming off a great season with the Detroit Red Wings where he led the team in scoring. Kate, how are you?
Doing well.
Dmitry, how are you?
I'm excited for this. Thanks for having us.
So am I. So Dan is as well. By the way, everyone registered for this webinar will get 3 free months of Perplexity Enterprise Pro. For up to 50 seats within their organization. You can start to do that math. You'll get an email after this session with instructions on how to sign up. Just go to perplexity.ai and type in the discount code that we will send you. I will try to tell you that, but I'll impale myself. So Dan, I know you're excited. We're going to get things going.
Yeah.
And if it's okay with you, I'm going to ask the first question.
Well, here,
Katie.
I just want to take one step back here. I mean, Guy and I are really fired up about this. You know, FactSet have been great partners of Revolutionizing Media now going on 4 years or so. Guy and I are longtime users of your products. We're also early adopters. Maybe, Guy, you can just nod and say you're an early adopter. I've been using Perplexity.
No, that happens to be true. Listen.
It does happen to be true. Okay. I've been using Perplexity for quite a while. We had the CEO, founder, or co-founder of Perplexity on our podcast back in February. He's been on Fast Money with us. So it is truly an honor to speak with Dmitry because he is at the forefront of all the deals that they're doing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about their partnership with FactSet, Guy. So let's get into it.
Yeah. And as you said, I have been using this. I want to say I've been on street accounts since 2003-ish, but it's at least 20 years, and it's been extraordinarily helpful for me. But these new iterations are obviously going to make things that much better. And when I say that much better, exponentially better. So, Kate, I'm going to start with you. As we mentioned, we're longtime FactSet users. We've seen some of the most impactful improvements to using the platform, most probably in the last decade or so, specifically with the launch of Transcript Assistant earlier this year. So tell us about that and tell us how groundbreaking it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think FactSet's history has shown how that efficiency of bringing together all multiple data sets and providing that easy access in a single platform has been really successful for us. And then with Gen AI coming along, that's really revolutionized that efficiency factor. So things like Transcript Assistant, really putting it next to those sources that our users are used to using, has made it really easy to dip your toe in, get in there, try it out, and also in a way that's kind of safer with clear source facts, auditability in a way that our users feel comfortable doing so. I think that's going to be a key to kind of unlocking this a bit more, is really getting it into the places where users are used to accessing this data today and shifting their actions over time.
Well, it's interesting, Kate. We were down at the FactSet Focus event I guess it was in the spring, and you guys had just launched this Transcript Assistant, and you guys had a bunch of breakout rooms where you're doing sort of trials, and it was amazing because it was kind of like standing room only. And to Guy's point, we've been using your products for 20 years. To have this sort of step up in capabilities for a product like that, when you think about 4 times a year, if you were a market participant, a professional market participant, earnings season is like, drinking from a fire hose. So to have this sort of helpfulness, you know what I mean? It really is huge. So speak to that a little bit, because I'd love to hear a little bit about what some of your feedback has been since launching it, because I'm sure you're making tweaks along the way.
Yeah, and I think one of the real differentiators with any of these tools is the dynamic nature of it. We get so much more of the user's voice and what they're trying to do by what questions they're asking. If you think about prior iterations of most of our applications, it's very click-based. So, you're kind of trying to extrapolate what the user's trying to do, what they're trying to find. Now they're asking direct questions. They're kind of expressing their intent, and that allows us to bring together much more data behind the scenes and augment answers features that used to be kind of more static
Yeah.
in a dynamic way that molds to the user. So it goes beyond transcript assistant, a lot more of our search intelligence, bringing together multiple sources and then starting to put into action more of those automated workflows like a portfolio commentary or, pitch creation, these different pieces that would take our financial customers hours and days, really shortening that down to minutes and seconds.
No doubt. And so around the time of that launch, Dmitry, you guys launched your Enterprise Pro product. We had Arvind Srinivas, CEO of your company, on Fast Money, kind of mapping out, some of the things that you were doing away from that initial, consumer experience on the show with us. So talk to us a little bit about the launch, who you wanted to partner with, what sort of verticals, because obviously, FactSet was one of your first select channel partners, and speak to us a little bit about why you went into the financial services vertical right out of the gate.
Yeah. So when we think about our most important consumer demographic at Perplexity, it's knowledge workers. That's who we want to be a best-in-class solution for. And what we've been hearing since our founding was a lot of knowledge workers were using Perplexity during the day at work to get their jobs done, but it was a form of shadow IT because they couldn't kind of get around their corporate IT policies. And we wanted to make that easier for folks. We wanted people to be able to use Perplexity, 24/7 and not have to resort to their personal device at their work desk just because somebody in IT wasn't happy with a given solution. And then as we thought about all of the verticals in enterprise, financial services has been our breakout star. And it makes sense because people that work in financial services, they do a lot of research. They have a lot of questions. There's a lot of novelty every day. You have to keep up to date with a fast changing world. And Perplexity obviously gives you superpowers there. And so it kind of was a very natural fit with FactSet, given the incredible wealth of proprietary data that FactSet has that's relevant for financial services professionals. And it's this really happy marriage where Perplexity is a synthesis tool. We're able to combine the best of FactSet, the best of the open web, and the best of your internal knowledge sources and give you those concise answers. And so we're incredibly excited about the partnership and just getting started.
Yeah. So when you think about that, Katie, you're obviously at the forefront of, you're always checking out new technologies, see how to integrate them into your workflows. How did you think about integrating a company like Perplexity and their technology? Because as far as we're concerned, we saw the uptake on the consumer side, and I can give some examples how I use it for my business, and not just my business, but when Guy and I are being goofy on TV, it's something that I've learned to rely on. Last night on the show, I don't know if you caught this, Guy, if you're listening to me, because I'm about 2 feet from you on that desk. Melissa asked me, how did you know that? And I said, well, I just used Perplexity. So I'm sitting there on the desk doing that. And I have to think a lot of financial services folks are, in trading seats or, portfolio managers or analysts, when you need to be quick, you're starting to rely on these solutions. So you guys obviously like to go, and I'm just going to say this because Shevelenko, what did you say, Guy? He was the leading scorer for the Wings
last year.
Yeah.
Right wing.
Yeah.
Let's fact check that on Perplexity.
We'll fact check that. But I'm going to say this, and Guy usually cringes. You guys are going where the puck is going, right? And so speak to us a little bit about how you think of this technology and where it's going, and whether it's being driven by you or a combination by you and your users.
Yeah, I mean, we're always very client driven. So in those meetings, we heard about our customers using Perplexity, and as well as our coworkers. I mean, our employees here using it as well. And FactSet got its start as a data integrator. We know the importance of bringing together multiple sources. So what we were hearing from our customers in terms of using Perplexity to bring together all of this great information from the web and their own data as well, as an open provider, being able to plug that data from FactSet that has, high standard of quality and history, bring that into a platform like Perplexity that our users are using, it was a kind of a no-brainer for us. And we've built up our data and our capabilities in a way that's been very open, API first, that allows it to really be integrated well. And that's something we've seen really resonate. So it made a lot of sense for us. And we think Perplexity has got some really special sauce and some things brewing that we wanted to plug into.
Yeah, it's an incredible partnership, and it makes a lot of sense, Dmitry. But I'm sure there are firms out there that feels like they've hit the wall in terms of AI and they don't know what to do next. So any advice that you can give to some of these firms or some of these individuals, how they can help leverage the capabilities of AI?
I think I think in some ways we've over exoticized AI, and the phrase itself isn't that helpful. Like I think of what we do is we save people time, right? And so working backwards from sitting down with your analysts and just breaking out like, okay, in a given 60-hour week, like what were you actually doing, and like what ended up taking up a lot of time. And then I think where what's magical about Perplexity is there's a number of questions you can ask on Perplexity, again, answer that doesn't do your job for you, but it gets you 80-90% of the way there. There's always going to be the need for like the human validation, but if you can save in a few seconds what previously would have taken you 5 to 6 hours of analytical work, and then let you focus on the thing that is uniquely human, that's what AI is all about, right? It's kind of finding these productivity unlocks, and letting people do the things that they are uniquely positioned to do, where you want that human judgment and intuition driving work outcomes, and so working backwards from again, just thinking about how we spend our time.
Yeah, Dmitry, and when Guy and I think about this, it's almost like the first pitch in the first inning. Is that fair to say? Because we're spending so much time, to your point, going over what the verbiage is, and you know what I mean? What are the use cases, and what's the return on investment and the like, and we're just kind of scratching the surface. And so Kate, picking up a little bit on what Dmitry just said, I mean, I've heard folks use this expression, maybe it's more like intelligent assistance, right? Like rather than artificial intelligence right now, when you think about the human aspect that it needs to be married with.
Yeah, I mean, first inning, but also I think the game is changing, right? Like as we go, I don't even know at this point which game we're in. Things move so quickly. But I do think that, as much as that trial and, really testing out where things are going, intelligence assistance, I definitely think that makes sense. I think of if you think about the future of work and you think of all the ways you interact with coworkers, the agent future is really having almost a limitless supply of interns, additional coworkers, team members to be working on some of these projects that you have. And, with sort of the evolution of agents, I think it's a really easy to conceptualize way of thinking about it, where you have the bots of some of the, maybe movies you've seen in the past, but those will be real team members to go out and work on projects with you.
Yeah. So it's a great segue here, Dmitry, because I don't know if you guys caught Mark Benioff last week. And I think every time he opens his mouth with a camera in front of him and a mic, he's talking about, this is obviously the CEO of Salesforce. He's basically talking about AI agents versus co-pilots. And he basically, listen, I'm sure you guys, well, maybe more FactSet. You guys are partnered with Microsoft on certain areas, but I mean, what does that mean to you that he keeps saying that co-pilots are like the equivalent of Microsoft Clippy from 25 years ago and AI agents are the way forward? Speak to like our viewer, our listener a little bit about what an agent is versus a co-pilot and how you come down on that.
I think given the early innings of where we are, I think both terms are marketing jargon rather than like substantive indicators of different capabilities. The spectrum that we see is, right now, use a product like Perplexity, use other AI tools, it's user-initiated queries, right? You're asking questions, you're getting answers back, you're asking more questions. I think the transition we're going to see is as the system understands you better, understands your needs better, your preferences, it can begin initiating its own queries, right? And it is, basically asking the question that you were going to ask and delivering the answer to you in a way that's useful without you needing to do that work, right? And so I think that is the spectrum that we're going to see acceleration on. We think of it 3 phases. Phase 1 was going from links to answers. Phase 2 is the one we're in now, going from answers to actions. We just on the consumer side launched an experience where if you're asking about products, you can just buy the product right from the answer with one click. And then that third phase is again that what we would call agents, where the system, Perplexity knows enough about you and your needs that we're just again initiating those queries, taking those actions, and you're just approving them rather than having to initiate them.
Yeah,
Kate,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Factor. You said the spectrum, and that's where my mind was as well. That's how I view it. Is really like there's kind of the human only to the agent only, or fully delegated. And I think the comfort level right now for most users is somewhere in between. So, an assistant or a co-pilot, something side by side with what you're used to using on a day-to-day, is a great way to grow adoption. And then also as systems improve, you can think about growing trust in that and pushing more and more to that system to kind of handle end to end. And if you think about it as that like co-worker factor, it's very similar. You get to know someone, you ask them to do some tasks for you, you decide what you think of their expertise, their quality, if they can do the job. And then over time you say, oh, they've got it handled. I'm just going to ask them to do it and they'll report back. And I think as we use these systems more and more, they're learning from us, we're learning from them. And that's where I think it'll start to get interesting over time, is a little bit more of the two-way conversation versus the one-way. Don't just fire questions and continue to ask. It'll start to kind of think overnight, push those things back to you, maybe be the one messaging you to say, hey, did you see this? Yep. It's very relevant to what you were asking me about yesterday, right? There's a lot to go in terms of the runway here.
So, Kate, what was the genesis of AI for FactSet? I mean, it seems so logical now and it makes a lot of sense, but it's obviously something internally you considered. So speak to us sort of the roadmap to get here.
Sure. We started as a data integrator, but then FactSet started collecting our own data as well. And a lot of that comes from parsing documents. So the very early machine learning, came from really just needing to be able to parse documents and sources in a way that we could retrieve and database that data. And then that changed over time to become much more integrated into the way that our product works, into the user experience, and bringing a lot more insights, intelligence, signals on top of all of that data that we had access to. So that was sort of the perfect setup and foundation for when GenAI came along, because we had got to a point where we have so much data on the system, and we were just trying to instruct our users where to find it, how to use the tools, and it took a lot of training. And now it becomes much more simplified. As we said, natural language, everyone can figure that out, right? Tell us what you need, tell us what you're trying to do, and then we can take that and deliver something that's, way beyond what we were able to do before.
Yeah. Hey, Dmitry, so Kate just mentioned trust, and that's something that I know that you guys spend a lot of time on. Obviously, a company like FactSet, where they have mission critical data, right? You think about the users of that data, they can't afford to have bad data informed decisions, right? So when you think about, and we hear this again and again, hallucinations, right? And some of the early sort of reporting that we saw, I think it was that reporter from the New York Times had that long conversation that went in some weird places, and I think that was the thing that maybe captivated some consumers. But when you think about it from an enterprise standpoint, right? And I use the example of last night on Fast Money. We're talking about BYD, and I just put into Perplexity, I said, what does BYD stand for? It said, build your dreams. Now, that seemed a little goofy, but I don't understand the Chinese language. So this is a Chinese EV maker, you know what I mean? And I had to click through to the citation, which brought me directly to BYD's website. So, I felt pretty confident about that. Speak a little to this idea of hallucinations, how you guys have kind of tried to get better and better at getting the right answers to people, and then they feel as confident as they do to use those answers to make decisions real time.
Yeah. So one of the founding insights of Perplexity was you're not going to usefully answer people's questions just with large language models on their own. And it's this merger of search and sources with large language models doing the summary and synthesis that unlocks a lot of value. And this is reflected in all aspects of the Perplexity product. Let's take the user interface, for example. We actually show you the sources before we show you the answer, because that grounds your confidence in what you're about to see. And then you obviously see on a line by line basis where the information is coming from. So there's there's several aspects here. One is transparency. If you know where the information is coming from, you can make your own assessment. Is that a trustworthy source or not? And you obviously can then click through and dive in further and get to your own judgment. And then just on a core capabilities basis, if you're not relying on the large language model as a store of knowledge, and you're just using it for the skill of synthesis and summary, that alone materially reduces the spectrum of where you could have hallucinations.
Kate, talk to us about how FactSet deals with the same issue, because it's something we heard about when we were at the conference, and I'm sure there's been an evolution since.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Dmitry, put it well there, but it's important to understand, if you're not in the weeds on this, that you're not only getting answers from a pre-trained model. As Dmitry said there, you can use that to understand what the user is asking. And then we take that of what are they trying to achieve? What are they asking? And we can use a lot of the same query mechanisms that we had used in FactSet and are well trusted and well vetted. So if you think about all of the structured content that we have, we use a lot of database queries to fetch that information and those facts, and it's clearly traceable back to an individual document with the methodology of how it was calculated. We want to maintain all of those things. So when you're get these questions, there's a good blend of some of that structured data that's the core facts, some unstructured data that starts to get into more of the themes and understanding kind of the world and synthesizing. And there's a powerful combination of those two things, but it really grounding in facts and bringing the right contextual data to allow that answer to be created is a huge part.
Let's talk about workflows, because obviously there's some very tangible things here. So, and Kate, what do you think the most impactful ways you've seen AI integrated into the existing financial workflows from the front office to the back office operations?
So I think research has definitely been one of the huge pieces that gets the most attention there. Just that synthesis of so much information, kind of being able to ask questions, get the information flowing, bringing that into kind of how internal research, notes and storage, and sharing that information with team members, really getting like that broader collaboration across all of the information, and then starting to look at those more manual tasks. We demonstrated portfolio commentary pieces where you have to do a lot of analysis, and then, these painful processes of doing the manual work behind it. And I think that when we talked about the spectrum of bringing together this tech and the user, they're involved in the process, but you're really shortening the time that it takes for those end-to-end tasks.
Yeah, and I want to follow up on this, Dmitry, a little bit, because there's a lot of verticals that you guys could have launched this enterprise, and I know you're in other ones, right? But when we think about markets, and Guy and I have been sitting in front of FactSet machines Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning till 5, 6 o'clock at night for, Guy for 50 years, me for, almost 30 years. And when we think about just, the markets are moving all day long, right? And lots of different markets, and they're geographically and the like. So, all over the world. How do you think about, a business, you know what I mean, a career path like this, you know, where it's just nonstop. I mean, trust me. How do you guys think about like serving an industry like that? Because there are far simpler industries where, you know, you don't have things moving every day with really unable to kind of think about what happens next. You need to have great tools. So talk to us a little bit about this industry and what makes it, I guess, interesting, but also challenging.
Yeah, I mean, what makes it interesting is there's a really big problem. There's just too much information in the world. You know, just a single earnings season for a single ticker, you know, there's 20 sell side reports you have to read and digest, and then act on that. And you know, so the source of alpha can't just be somebody who can read more, right? It's about knowing what to parse, knowing what to pull out, asking the right questions. And I think that's, you know, that's where we want to move the skill level to, right? It's not purely about, you know, consuming the information. It's knowing what to ask, and that's where I think the new alpha is. And so I think because of just the vast volumes of information and all the different questions you can ask to interrogate that information, it's a great, you know, platform for what Perplexity can do. It's challenging as a vendor. There's a lot of like security requirements that financial services companies have, and we've gotten very good at filling out security questionnaires, but that was definitely an acquired skill. And I think, you know, the newness of AI is causing, you know, concerns, and people want to understand what's happening with their queries, what's happening with their data, and so I think there's just some inherent friction there that makes it more challenging than verticals with less sensitive information.
Yeah, and I want to hit regulation in a second, but Kate, I wanted to bring it back to you. So when you mentioned, you know, Dmitry just mentioned security, right? We have compliance, we have regulation. These are like the three pillars, I think, of financial services companies when they think about how to manage their data, how they interact with clients, you know, all of the like. So how do you kind of put all of that together? Because again, this is a new technology. A lot of consumers are just kind of figuring it out. Enterprises are the ones who are going to unlock, I think, a lot of the benefits of it near term. You guys are all, it probably makes your product that much stickier, and it probably is bringing people over from other platforms that don't have this kind of technology integrated, into their processes and services and the like. So think about, just give us a sense of how you're thinking about compliance and security and regulation.
Certainly. I mean, this is nothing new for us. FactSet has portfolios, our clients' most important pieces of information loaded onto our systems, their internal research notes. There's a lot of proprietary information that, you know, we've spent decades perfecting and, complying with all of the regulation around that. LLMs are very interesting. One, because I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding around how it all works and what does it mean. But there's starting to become regulation around much more transparency of where AI is used, what models are being used, how is it used in the process. So the benefit that we have from just watching the regulation very closely and implementing that into our design, but also talking to customers every day about these things and going beyond even what's required from a compliance standpoint. The prompt question is a really interesting one that we get into because it goes beyond a little bit usage data of the past. I said about the clicks from here to there. Now a user is putting much more intellectual property into an actual prompt. And so there's heightened security around all of that. We treat it in a very similar way to the way that we do the most trusted data that's on our system. But the nice thing, so what we are seeing with a lot of our customers is instead of using many different platforms and needing to kind of like vet each one of those, having a provider that's doing some of that, has the experience of it, bringing that together in one place is really helpful for the customer base.
Yeah. Dmitry, there's a new administration coming in, as we know. I mean, regulations are probably going to change. My sense is, in terms of for the more lenient, let's put it that way. But how do you see it evolving regulation in this new incoming administration?
Listen, I think we should check Polymarket for that. That's probably the best read on where things are going to go. but independent of the administration, our position is, we should be regulating the use of technology, not the development of it. There's no reason to make LLMs, less smart than they could be. But like any new technology, people can use them for not great reasons, and that's where we should be putting the regulatory leverage. But it is there's just so much good that can come from the increased productivity that this new generation of AI is enabling for all of us, that we need to be open to that while being sober to understanding those nefarious use cases and having strong laws around that.
Yeah, and I think where Guy was going also is that, until we had GPT, kind of, I don't know, I know folks like you guys, like whether you're a CTO like Kate or you who's been, involved in building, really innovative companies from the ground floor. We were taking a look at your background. You were, pre-IPO Facebook, you were at LinkedIn. These companies all had really good outcomes, right? And then you think about your time at Uber. Uber was something that you had to navigate a lot of regulation, right? So when people look at a technology like this, and most people aren't even using it yet, right? When you think about it that in that regard. So I guess, like, how do regulations get framed, Dmitry, from your past experience in a way that keeps some guardrails on? I mean, I can't think of a better way than a partnership with enterprises like FactSet, because like to our earlier conversation, they are so focused on compliance and security and privacy and regulation. So how are you guys like thinking about it? Is it more mission critical, obviously, on the enterprise side, and what keeps you up at night as you partner with more enterprises and as they're deploying your technology?
Yeah, I think it's making sure that we build in our system that in a way that's future proof to where the world is going. So, for example, for enterprise users, we don't train any of our internal systems based off of prompts from enterprise users, right? Because that's obviously a concern for them, but that's also, I think, something that could get enshrined in a legislative or regulatory way down the road. And so I think we're trying to anticipate where some of these modalities are going. We don't resell data from consumers. We just use prompts to improve our own product on the consumer side, but that's it. And so I think being aware of the future privacy implications, kind of seeing what happened with social networks, and assuming you're going to have similar developments in consumer and enterprise AI. That's how we're approaching it.
Kate, obviously the financial sector is the focus here, but what applications in other sectors could potentially apply on the financial side of things, or for financial institutions?
I mean, I've been keeping an eye on sort of the more creative use cases here. We've, focused a lot on kind of this data synthesis, but you look at some of the newer models out there with image generation, video generation, computer use, it controls your PC. There's so much more there that I think could become really interesting. The way that UI and UX shifts in this space, I can only imagine. We talked a little bit about, those coworkers coming in. Will we be inviting them to a webcast, inviting them to our internal meetings, asking questions in more speech, advancements? I'd say that more creative ways that are happening outside of financial services, I think, will definitely come into play here, and really be a little bit of a shift from today's structure around things, but be a really interesting shift.
Yeah, and Dmitry, Kate just mentioned earlier automation, right? And so the idea that you put in all these prompts, you engaged with the platform. Maybe it was on transcripts. Maybe it realized that you were only focused on technology and specifically, the price action of stocks after they put out a beat and raise or something like And it's going to be learning, right? It's going to be all the prompts, all the other users, that sort of thing. And so, what do you like? How far away are we from automation? Like, where you basically basically the system learns and it realizes your behavior, and then it's starting to lay you up. You get up in the morning rather than just getting, I don't know about you guys. I wake up in the morning, I have like 50 emails from all of these different news publications, from, different investment banks, from friends of mine, breaking down, Tesla's earnings or whatever. At what point is this going to get a lot easier for users? And are we years away, or is it, like that some sort of automation is going to happen in the not too distant future?
Yeah, Dan, we were talking earlier about Perplexity's daily podcasts, and the Discover Daily, and we're going to soon release a version of that that's personalized, right? So where you'll get your Perplexity podcast is just about what you're interested in and the topics that you care about, and that'll be different than Guy's, and it'll be different than mine. So we're already moving that direction. I think, when we were talking about that spectrum earlier, like you can almost think of it right now, we're very much in the pull era, where you're kind of having to pull things out of these products. And we're soon going to enter this horizon of getting pushes, right? Where you literally will get, personalized push notifications from Perplexity that is anticipating, again, hey, you may be interested in this based off of that. And the challenge is, giving somebody something they didn't ask for and being wrong is worse than like sending nothing at all, right? So it's a very high bar. And I think you want to be very thoughtful as you're building a product like this, not to annoy people, because the last thing you want is like more information overload that's not actually simplifying your life. And, it's going to require a lot of experimentation. I don't think it's necessarily like this isn't just about technology. It's about the user experience and nailing it. I think the technology exists. I think it's finding those right cues and delivery mechanisms.
Yeah, and to your point, and just for any listeners or viewers who are not familiar with this, I've been doing it since day one, because the Discover Daily is a podcast. I think it's under 10 minutes. It's on, they take, 10 of the most impactful stories. I'm sure there are things that are trending, right? You're getting a lot of questions, and they basically synthesize it. They have a voice bot reading it, and it's just really great, and just kind of spurs some of the things that you guys are built on, the idea of curiosity, right? And finding the answers. Guy and I were so enthralled with it. We do one of the similar things. Our team curates about 10 market stories, business stories of the day. Now, this is my question about automation. We put those 10 stories in a chat for our team. They put them into Perplexity with a prompt to summarize it. They take the text, and then we put it into a voice box bot, right? And then it reads it. Now, our name, I think, is a bit cooler. Ours is called Brunson, after our main man, Jalen Brunson, here in New York, Nick. But at some point soon, will that all be automated? If we put those stories into a chat and we give it a prompt to do all of that, is that not far away? Then we have a 10-minute, podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this gets into some issues around creators and artists. When people consume that podcast, they consume it because you're affiliated with it, right? And so they want to feel there's, whatever it is that you did to that prompt, that there's something special there that they're like relating to you. I think where it gets into full automation is something that is not possible at human scale, which is, say, like a completely individualized, personalized podcast for every one of your listeners, right? That's something that you need the full automation to enable. And so that I think we're getting close to it, but that's the perfect experience there hasn't yet been developed.
Okay, congratulations. Oh, go ahead real quick.
I was just going to say really quick on that. I think that's where contextual personalized information comes in, because you could imagine taking a synopsis of all of the different podcasts you've done, taking someone's portfolio, and then, pulling out the pieces that are of most interest for that user based on that context. So the personalized context, I think, is a big part of the automation of the future, because you want that to be kind of acting on the context that's specific to the user.
And another idea, and maybe we should do this with FactSet, is helping companies create a daily news podcast for all their employees, right? Like here's what everybody needs to know this morning. And again, that's really expensive to do as a manual production. But if you're able to automate 90% of it, but still kind of take input. Okay, these are the company's priorities. These are the things we want our workforce to be thinking about this week, and have that reflected in that content. You can create some really powerful new employee engagement services there.
That engagement piece is huge. Go ahead, Guy.
No, I'm sorry, Kate. I apologize. My final question to you was, first was a statement. You should feel incredibly proud with your team and FactSet in general that you guys were so ahead of the curve on the AI front. But my question to you is, how are you going to leverage this to have this sustained competitive advantage that you're enjoying right now at FactSet?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I spent my whole career as an engineer at FactSet. And so being in the CTO role during this time of enormous change and growth from a technology standpoint has been really fun. What has really helped us in this part of the journey is that knowing that we're going to plug in a bunch of different ways. So we never build something for one end use case. We're compartmentalized and encapsulated in a way that you can really plug into many different areas. And with the way that things are changing, we've already created technical debt in the Gen AI space, as sad as that is to say. Like, we've created our conversational experience. Agents are sort of the future of that. We're kind of already evolving what we've built, so that agility, the flexibility, and knowing that the change is the only thing you can be sure of, that's how we stay ahead. And then foundation of the high quality data.
Well, listen, I think we're at time here, folks. I mean, Guy and I really appreciate this. I know the folks at FactSet understand that we are honored to be a steward of your brand. You guys have been great partners of ours. We use your products, your services. We rely on your data. Our listeners, our viewers have become accustomed not just to us articulating how we use your services, but we've had the benefit of having so many of your thought leaders come on with us and kind of educate our users to a whole host of things as it relates to FactSet and how you kind of play in the financial services industry. And then also, Dmitry, you guys are our new favorite brand. We've been talking about it on CNBC. We've been using it on CNBC. You guys have come on our podcast. We're really excited about what you're doing. It brings me back a little bit to the first time, and I've said this on our show, that I remember using Google. Getting off a search engine. This goes back 25 years ago. I haven't had this sort of web experience since then. It's just changed the way I think about interacting with the internet. So we're super excited about what you guys are doing. We are amazed at which the time frame you are shipping product, and not just shipping product, but product that works. You know what I mean? And is that really changing the way like folks like us have done things? So Perplexity, we're rooting for you guys. We're users, and we can't say it enough. Like, this combination, this partnership is something that we're benefiting from on many different ways. So we hope your users, Kate, and your users, Dmitry, recognize the strength of this partnership. And Guy and I, we're really happy to be here. So we really appreciate you guys being here. Last thing, and I'll shut up. You want to try Enterprise Pro from Perplexity? If you had logged into this thing, you're going to get an email. They have a 3-month trial. You'll have all the ways in which to do that. So Dmitry, Kate, we really appreciate your time here today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.